Seasons streaming and reviewing mods and video games. They search the land in 7 seasons, centuries have passed. Until the day a hero named Merit a famous task. Deep dark gaming, we love to play video games. We'll keep playing until the early morning. Deep dark gaming, we explain mods and games. Deep dark gaming, we sell my games and more. As Mary set off on his quest to moving in a crew, the navigator joined the ranks and so did Mr. Q. Sailing for adventure, stories and for treasure. We will help you through, so climb aboard and join the crew. Deep dark gaming, we love to play video games. We'll keep playing until the early morning. Deep dark gaming, we explain mods and games. Deep dark gaming, we sell the games and more.
Ahoy divers, and welcome back to Deep Dive Gaming. I am the Mariner, and we are back for another short stream of Consciousness with Hiro. Hey Hiro.
Hello.
And on the docket tonight we have Final Fantasy V. Tyrundeth will hopefully be joining us momentarily, but that's not going to stop us from getting it going here. And as customary now, I have a playthrough walkthrough thingy-bopper going. It's in Italian. We couldn't find, if you were watching last week, you saw we couldn't find one in English, so we'll go ahead and start that up while we talk. And I need to get my Final Fantasy wiki page going as well. Let's see.
Likewise.
So ahoy Twitch, ahoy chats, or ahoy Twitch, ahoy YouTube, ahoy Mojo, Foxy, and Mariner Kitty, who's finally feeling more like herself.
That's good.
It's been
I'm glad to hear that.
It's been 24 plus hours since I've had to clean up a mess.
That's much better.
Yep. And oops, I gotta get that going again. Okay, let's try that one more time. Okay. So, leaving that window there, going back to this window. And then, okay. Wiki. Fantasy. And apologies for not being quite ready to start the stream when we started the stream. Both Hiro and I are multitasking tonight. Okay.
Just a little.
Just a wee bit. And Tyrundeth should be joining soon, but I think I already said that.
Yep, you mentioned that.
Yep, and I've tried to summon the Smasher. We'll see if that works out. But in the meantime, Final Fantasy V, the 5th main installment in the Final Fantasy series, developed and published by Squaresoft, released for the Super Famicom in Japan, 1992, and was re-released in Japan in the West, and re-released in Japan and in the West on PlayStation in 1998. Game Boy Advance 2006, iOS and Android 2013, Microsoft Windows via Steam 2015. The game was re-released on Windows, iOS, and Android as part of the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Series 2021, followed by versions for PS4, Switch in 2023. Directed by Hironobu Sakaguchi and Yoshitaka Amano. Providing the character design, Nobuo Uematsu, probably butchered that one, composing the score. The only installment on the Super NES that was not released outside of Japan, with Final Fantasy IV and VI both releasing in North America, Final Fantasy II and III respectively. It was the first Final Fantasy to use kanji in text, as well as hiragana and katakana. Is that just general knowledge, or was the kanji showing up in the American version? It is unclear.
I would say that in the American versions of most things, you don't see a whole lot of kanji from early games because they were all direct translations. But, and
I
again,
just
as I say in the before, it's all subject to being fact checked. Most of the English versions of things from the early era
wow,
of gaming do not have kanji.
gotcha. I spent 5 minutes on the flashing press start button on this video. So as usual, game takes
Tyrundeth.
place. Oop, is that Tyrundeth? Hello, Tyrundeth. Ahoy, ahoy, Tyrundeth.
He might probably has to mess with his Discord to get it to work right.
Mm.
That or he has to turn off his push to talk. Not sure.
Yeah. So I'll keep talking here, or keep reading rather. Game takes place in medieval fantasy setting. Sensors on a group. Why is this not playing? That's why. Okay. That is really weird. If I tab out, it stops playing. Okay, fine. Anyways, sensors on a group of 4 strangers brought together by circumstances to save the crystals that have mysteriously begun shattering. The one behind, the one behind the phenomenon is the antagonist X-Death. Isn't X-Death technically living? As part of a plan to release himself from imprisonment and gain the power of the Void, a realm of nothingness which could bestow absolute power on one able to resist being absorbed by it. Interesting. 4 become the warriors. Oh boy, here we go again. Warriors of Light, and turn their attention to defeating X-Death and stopping the Void's energies from consuming their world. Let's see. Key feature is the job system again. 22 jobs available. Master jobs to retain their abilities and stats when using a different job. The 4 can use the abilities of their current job. Blah blah blah. Battles are fought using the active battle system. Active time battle system. ATB for those in the know. Much strategy revolves around mixing up combos, learning the right skills from a job to use in combination with skills from another job to defeat the challenging dungeons and bosses. Let's see. Whoops. Hang on. Forgot to open up the YouTube chat just in case. Okie dokie. And let's see. Final paragraph of the summary says, Final Fantasy V has had a great influence on the series. The job system has inspired later games, including Final Fantasy Tactics 11, 10-2. It also introduced many conventions to the series, such as the Blue Mage, and the recurring mini-boss in the form of Gilgamesh, who himself has featured in many games since the anime. Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals is an OVA sequel to Final Fantasy V taking place 200 years after the game's events. Is it really a sequel at that point?
Well, no, I don't think so personally. However, I will say that Gilgamesh makes a lot of appearances.
I hear the word Gilgamesh and I instantly think of the episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where Picard and Dathan are trapped on that planet.
Yeah.
That was my first exposure to Gilgamesh, to the story of Gilgamesh. Who says Star Trek is uncultured?
Nobody.
Yeah.
At least I don't think anybody says that. Gilgamesh is a prominent character from a lot of mythology. So, yeah. What's this? Anyways, is Tyrundeth working yet? Obviously not.
Yeah. Well, while he's fixing
He
that,
left.
oop! I heard something.
He left.
Oh,
Yes, the puppy has been waiting to see me all day, so she decides to charge me and jump on me from behind. And there he is again.
sounds like a Final
Check your
Fantasy
input
challenge.
and output. Check your input and output.
Can you hear me now?
Aha!
Yes.
Ahoy, Tyrundeth.
Can you hear us?
Nope,
look, a
not at all.
chocobo.
That wouldn't surprise me if you couldn't, but obviously, since you responded.
I was trying. What I was trying to say was, yeah, Gilgamesh actually shows up not only as a character in a lot of the games, but and mythology, but in some of them as a summon.
Ahoy,
I'd say probably-
Gazoo on the Twitch side, by the way.
There's the Gazoo.
So, Hiro, is this a chocobo on the screen right now?
Yes, that would be a chocobo. The second time that you get to see chocobos, if I am correct. I'm assuming that it is a mounted character, or it is a mount, and you just don't see the sprite that's riding it because laziness. I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds like they're. It looks like they're trying to spark a random encounter.
Yeah, I would say that that seems accurate.
There's the sprite. So, do you want to read next?
I can, yes. Where did you leave off with?
I finished up the overview.
Okay. Let's see. It's obviously it's a turn-based role-playing game, so we're not going to go through like the gameplay elements because it's traditional.
Yeah.
Actually, in the wiki, there is a picture of Gilgamesh and the party fighting. If you have that handy.
You see. Is that? Let's see. I'm on a different wiki than you are. I'm on the fandom page, technically.
Well, this is on the Wikipedia page, which
Let me see if I can bring it up here. Wiki. See, Final Fantasy 5 Wiki. Wikipedia. Alright, let's pause this. I will
yep.
copy this address and put it here. Zoom in if I can. Oh, I guess not. Still, that's
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that popped up.
Okay.
So there's Gilgamesh since you'd mentioned him. In this game, as is common with most Final Fantasies, the main feature of gameplay is the job system, otherwise known as classes. If you are familiar with D&D, you get to change your class freely in this game. You can have your whole party be white mages if you so choose, which is probably a terrible idea because white mages generally are more for healing than they are for damage.
Yeah, I don't recall them being able to do a lot of damage in that game.
Yeah. I mean, it varies from game to game in general, but there's that. And then you have your blue mages, well, you have blue mages and red mages, which I don't really remember the distinction between those two mage classes. In general.
Which two?
What's that? Oh, red and blue. In general, those would be the damage dealing mages.
Red is more offensive and typically uses things like earth and air and lightning, whereas blue is typically fire ice, and sometimes lightning. Blue Mage, depending on which iteration, is also more based around your enemy's attacks, learning them and spitting them back.
Oh, so that's the Masochist class. Gotcha. And then you also have Black Mages, which is things like poison, death magic, necromancy.
Yeah,
Yada
the
yada.
Black Mage is usually your general massive damage. Red is typically, mega damage and light heals.
Yep.
No glass cannons?
that would be
They're all glass cannon.
yeah, that would be every mage class.
Okay.
Oh, you also have time mages and mimes in this one.
Mines or mimes?
Mime as in a mimic.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to make a mime joke, but it's too obvious now.
Yep. But as you
Only if you want to put it in a box.
you're right.
Handed a rope.
Yeah, you get the way the job system works off of ability points so that you can level each class from class to class. Whenever you change your jobs, the AP doesn't carry over. It accumulates per class, which is pretty typical of a Final Fantasy type game. They did this exact same thing in Octopath Traveler, which is a relatively recent Square Enix game. It plays just like classic Final Fantasy. You had the same thing in Bravely Default, Bravely Second, and there was another one that was called Bravely Default 2 that were all kind of in the same series there. And Octopath Traveler 2. I don't think the job system is very exclusive to Final Fantasy or Square Enix anymore. But I would still argue that Square Enix has done it best as far as job systems.
I would say you'd be correct on all assumptions there.
Yeah. Tyrundeth, I don't know if you would like to pick up some commentary for yourself. If you're at liberty to do so, you're welcome to. Or do you yield your time?
On this one, I think I'm going to have to yield.
I guess I can understand that, considering that, well, in this case, we're just better equipped to read off of some of the cues that we have here, some of the materials we prepared.
Well, someone
you
prepared
can't
them.
yeah, you can't. I understand you're not exactly in a situation to have materials open in front of you to read. Let's see. So, a bit of the plot. I'll talk a little bit about the setting. The backstory of Final Fantasy V is revealed through phases and cutscenes and character interactions with NPCs in the game, and through game progression. This takes, let's see, it gives some commentary about a 1 millennium before the events of the main story. A powerful mage by the name of Enuo imperiled the world using the power of an evil entity called the Void. And people retaliated by using 12 legendary weapons to vanquish Enuo, but the Void itself could not be destroyed. As a result, the people decided to split the world's 4 elemental crystals into 2 sets, basically creating 2 worlds to trap the Void on one of those 2 worlds. This sounds like it kind of was referenced quite a bit in Final Fantasy 16, just from reading that.
I love how they call it. I love how they refer to the void as if it's a thing when void typically means lack of thing
True.
or lack of anything for that matter.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it makes one wonder whether the translation did not come through all the way.
Kind of. There's wow. Sorry, the screen did some weirdness because Twitch was being weird. So in a lot of Japanese mythology / culture, there's references to forms of magic in their spiritualistic beliefs or in their traditional spiritual beliefs. And one of the references to in one of the references to said magic, it was very elemental based and referenced a lot of things. Obviously, your wind, your water, your fire, your earth, and then there was reference to spirit and void. Those were considered traditional elements to some degree in, I don't know if I'd say in Shinto, but at least in traditional Japanese spiritualism. Void was seen to be the antithesis of spirit, while fire and water were the antithesis of each other, if that makes sense. So I would not say that it is lost in translation. I would say that it is a different translation.
Yeah, it's usually light and void are opposites.
Right. But spirit is often kind of sort of shared in its definition with light, and other times it's an energy that empowers all living things, whereas void is often attributed to quote unquote anti-light / death magic and things like that.
You know, unless we're talking about, say, spirits within, and then spirit was its own element, and it was split between light and dark, or light and void.
Well, that's where I was saying traditionally in Japanese mythology, spirit is its own element, as is void. And usually in those traditions, spirit and light are kind of sort of attributed to the same things, whereas void and dark are attributed to the same things. Or the opposing things, sorry. Anyways, we're getting into a little bit of exposition there.
That's what it's all about. So let's talk about, briefly summarize the 4 characters that we get. 5 characters that we get. I love how the fandom has this in parentheses. So Bart Klauser, parentheses, Butts in the original Japanese, is an adventurer who becomes embroiled in the adventure when he comes upon the crash site of a meteorite with Boko, his chocobo, and meets Lena. Lena Charlotte Tycoon, Reina in the English PS version, meets Bart or Butts at the meteorite. She is the daughter of King Tycoon. Isn't that like a double? Isn't that the same thing? Your name is redundant, boy. And when the king failed to return from his trip, Lena set out to look for him. I like this name though. Galuf Let me start that again. Galuf Halmbaldessian is a mysterious old man with amnesia discovered unconscious at the meteorite crash site. Does that mean he's Proto Gandalf? He remembers only 2 things: his name and he is heading for the Wind Shrine. That was a jab at Rings of Power, by the way.
Yes, it was.
I mean, it's practically in the name Galuf. Come on.
I mean, the jokes write themselves on this one,
Yeah.
especially at the racehorse expense.
Yep. And then Sherwitz is a pirate captain whom the party meets when they tried to sneak aboard the pirate ship. And then Kyle Meyer Baldessian is Galuf's granddaughter who aids the party several times.
So it seems like this story picks up, and basically, with what I read earlier as the plot, the story takes place over 1,000 years later after this great war with 12 legendary weapons, yada yada, split the world into two worlds, and basically, from what I can tell, in the world where the great evil void was not sealed, life progressed, and then eventually the void starts trying to break into the other world so that it could take over again, because it's the big bad evil guy.
Yeah, I'm going to put a picture up of the void.
Wouldn't that kind of hint at the whole thing that this is the first iteration of the celestial weapons?
I would say that's a valid hint right there. I have not well, no, I take that back. I was about to say I have not encountered the celestial weapons, but then I was like, wait, I remember I played Final Fantasy 15. Technically, 15 does have celestial weapons. They're actually known as the Royal... Oh, shoot. Can't remember exactly. The Royal something. It is basically spectral weapons that Noct can summon, because he's the prince and inherits the birthright of the legendary royal king, what have you. I feel like based off of some of this story that 15 and 5 are also tied together in some way, shape, or form, that the same way as 16 and 5 are tied together. Kind of ironic.
Spoilers. We'll get
I wouldn't
there.
call I wouldn't call that spoilers. I'm just basing it off of the plot that I've read and having played it.
It's okay.
Yes, well, let's face it, Hiro. You have a tendency to do this with TV series, where you're calling general basic known fact, and this TV series go, oh, by the way, this is true.
Yeah, and then I get accused of spoiling things. It's like, no, this is common knowledge.
Commonly only known to Hiro. So, ooh, this is interesting. You got enemy cards. Bestiary.
This would probably be the predecessor to, I guess Queen's Blood would be the major mini game that's in almost every Final Fantasy now.
In some shape or form, yeah, I think you're right.
Well, it's probably like the proto predecessor, because you didn't get mini games like that in these old ones. You got it looked like it was just a bestiary, but you're collecting cards. So that's what made me think that way.
So, let's do a quick foray into the development. Let's see, we talked.
Because I don't feel like reading the story and spoiling it for everybody.
Yeah, we learned that lesson last week. So, Hironobu Sakaguchi and Yoshinori Come on, tongue, get your Anyways, Yoshinori Kitase first worked together on Final Fantasy V. Kitase has later summarized the experience thusly. Mr. Sakaguchi and I worked on bracket the games and bracket events in the relays. So when we would go to work, the first thing we'd do is check the data the other had put up to check for the continuity. We'd see each other's work and think, I'll make something even better in a sort of competition. Oof. That's how you make a video game. Hironobu Sakaguchi was in charge of the overall design, while everyone else carried around their ideas in their own plan books. Tetsuya Nomura, whose first big involvement with Final Fantasy was with 5, had jobs in mind such as a ninja ninja with a dog, a gambler who fought with dice and cards, Gambit, among others. Others typed things out with computers, but to have more impact, Nomura wrote handwritten notes and included drawings. After a while, whenever it was time to turn in the plan books, Sakaguchi and Kitase would ask for Nomura's book, especially Nomura's ideas of a ninja with a dog and a gambler were not used in Final Fantasy V, but when work started on Final Fantasy VI, they were used for Shadow and Setzer. Ooh. Sakaguchi has said that sometimes RPGs force too many images and too much sound onto the players, robbing them of the feel of control. And to avoid those responses, Square did extensive research during Final Fantasy V and VI in how to make players feel interactively involved in the game while upgrading the visual and sound effects. Let's see, talk about the Super Famicom. It looks like it was almost fully translated, but then Square opted not to ship it to the U.S.
At first.
Yeah.
They later did.
They got there eventually.
It got there eventually. Let me look at the timeline here. They did do a sequel, apparently. Let's see. Ports and remarks. Final Fantasy V was ported by Tosei to the PlayStation and re-released in Japan on March 19, 1998, which was included in the 1999 release of the Final Fantasy Collection alongside 4 and 6. PlayStation version boasted 2 new full motion video opening and ending sequences and a memo save feature, but the game otherwise remained unchanged. Square released 50,000 limited edition copies of the collection, which included a Final Fantasy themed alarm clock in the same year. The alarm clock. In the same year, Square released the PlayStation compilation Final Fantasy Anthology in North America, which included Final Fantasy V as well as the PlayStation version of 6. This would mark the first time the game was published outside of Japan. So there you go. In '99 was the first time America got to see Final Fantasy V, at least as Final Fantasy V. Let's see. We'll jump down to the next little port conversation here. Following the release of the PS2, Sony reported that the new system...
Real quick, Zoo addressed you on a comment in the Twitch chat.
Ask me, would you rather play the hero or be... What?
The answer is yes.
That's the only valid answer is yes.
The only answer
Not
this
one
stream
yet.
will accept.
Anyways, so the PS2, following the release of the PS2, Sony reported that the new system had compatibility issues with Final Fantasy V, half of the Final Fantasy Anthology. Okay. The game experienced a bug where if players attempted to save their games, a graphical error would occur. Square then released a statement that that only the look of the save screen was corrupted and saving was still possible. And if players wished, repeatedly going into and out of the save screen would make a normal screen eventually appear. This incompatibility was fixed for the PAL and greatest hits releases of the Final Fantasy anthology. So basically, before quick fixes, hot fixes, and patch updates were available, Sony said, "Hey, just go in and out of the screen repeatedly, and it'll fix itself eventually."
Sounds like early bug fixes. Ah,
The old days.
yes. So, let's see. Then there was the Game Boy Advance port, considered in early 2001, but the project failed due to the absence of an appropriate platform. The Wonder Swan Color was not powerful enough to run the game, and Nintendo did not allow Square to develop on Game Boy Advance despite Harunobu Sakaguchi's wish. Years later, after relations between Square and Nintendo improved, the game was successfully ported and under the title Final Fantasy V Advance. It was released in North America on November 6, 2006. Changes made from the previous versions are graphical tweaks, no wonder, and a new translation, 4 additional jobs, a bestiary. That must be what we're seeing, if there's a bestiary, because I saw the bestiary. Quick save function, music player, and a new 30-floor dungeon? Oh! Unlike the advanced port of Final Fantasy IV, some of the bugs in 5 were fixed. There's also not as much choppiness and lag in the graphics. Which... And then, let's see, Virtual Console. January 18, 2011, the port from the original Super Famicom version was released for the Wii's Virtual Console service, but only in Japan. Then we got PlayStation Network version, April 6, 2011. In Europe, April 13th. North America, November 22nd, 2011. America, always late to the game. Or late to the party.
Well, it's more like we just got shafted on a lot of the Japanese IP.
Yeah, look where we are now, though. I refer to that Twitter link I sent you earlier today.
I know, right?
Basically, all of the game choices for Game of the Year were Japanese. Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Although you could argue some that
well, there's Japanese, Chinese. Let's just say there were no American options for the video game awards.
I would argue that the Square Enix choice that they picked, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is heavily Americanized now.
Right, but Americanized, not originating.
Not originating as far as the IP goes, but unfortunately, Square Enix's main office is currently in California.
Yeah.
They closed their office in Japan.
Don't.
They did that about a year and some change ago.
Yeah.
Well,
well,
almost 2 years ago.
Look what that got you now, Square Enix.
I know, right?
There's a phrase I want to use, but I'm not going to.
Games?
No, I was thinking something else entirely. But
I think I know where you're going.
But I will say this instead. # play old games.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
Would you like to read for the audience the mobile installation?
Let me see.
There's a little bit of dimension on that one.
Virtual Console. In the early 2010s, they considered doing a remake of it for the DS, but was concerned that the technical issues would prevent it from working. The 3DS was also considered. And then, shortly after, they did an iOS port for Apple products, which was developed by Matrix Software, which was released in March of 2013 on the Apple Store. And an Android release came shortly after in
like
September.
shortly by 6 months.
Barely, actually.
Yeah.
Barely 6. The game features new high-resolution graphics with sprites designed by Kazuka Shibuya, who did the original game's artwork, new gameplay features such as movement in 8 directions and auto battle, and it also contained the sealed temple and super boss Enuo from the
Wait.
Game Boy Advance release.
8 directions, up, down,
Yeah,
left, right,
and then the
diagonal.
diagonal.
Okay. I was gonna make a joke, but it fell flat. I was thinking up, down, or forward, backward, left, right, up, down, and then it was like what? Forward and backward in time? What are we talking about here?
And then there's that.
Yeah. Marty,
see.
you're not thinking 12th dimensionally or 4th dimensionally.
In September 2015, the remaster was released on PC via Steam.
Steam.
Tetsuya Nomura, director of Final Fantasy VII Remake, expressed interest in remaking Final Fantasy V and VI. Kitase, who produced Final Fantasy VII Remake, also expressed a desire to remake Final Fantasy V. A 2D pixel remaster was released in North America for Steam, iOS, Android, and Android on November 10th, 2021.
We have a Marina Kitty. Hi, Marina
Hey,
Kitty.
Marina. Oh, jeez. Unlike the previous remake, many of the features added in the Game Boy Advance remake are absent from this version.
Yep. Does yours?
The sequel.
Well, before
go
we
ahead.
get it, before we go into the sequel, does your page show the system requirements for Windows or for the Steam version of the game?
Not on the Wikipedia, no.
Mine has it. So get this for a blast from the past.
jeez.
Operating system Windows Vista. We all know how that went. Processor
Yeah, that felt flat.
Intel Pentium 4, 2.4 gigahertz.
Jeez.
This is how I learned about Blue Man Group, was because of the Intel Pentium 4 processor commercials. Memory, 2 gigabytes RAM. And then DirectX version 10.
DirectX version 10. Good Lord.
All right.
Let's see.
Now, the sequel.
Yeah, so the sequel. In 1994, Square released an original video animation sequel to Final Fantasy V, simply titled Final Fantasy. Produced by animation studio Madhouse, the anime was released in 4 30-minute VHS tapes. Good Lord. In Japan, and it was set 200 years after the game. The story focuses on 4 warriors, one of them a descendant of Bart's, or Butts, protecting the Wind Crystal from the villain Death Gionos, who pursues it to achieve godhood. It was localized by Urban Vision in '98 and released in 2 VHS volumes for North America under the title Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals. So, wow.
Old school, man.
I am.
I got a text from my mom a couple weeks ago because we collected the VHS tapes for Star Trek: The Next Generation. She texted me
good
going.
Lord.
She texted me going, "Your dad wants to know if it's worth keeping these," and I'm like, "Maybe for collector's value, they could be worth a lot to the right seller or to the right buyer."
Yeah, I would say arguably yes. For people, there are collectors out there that collect vintage media, not just vintage video games.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything after that, but so I left it up to them, and I am not taking those tapes and trying to do the same thing because that's more work for me. And they're retired. They need something to do.
Well, yeah, there you go. You
But,
should definitely let them know that there's certain circumstances that those would be worth a lot of money to somebody.
yeah. We'll see what happens if they decide to tell me. Okay, so
We got about 15 minutes. Do you want to go into some of the sales data?
you can. I don't have that on the fandom page.
Oh, fair enough. Let's see. Within a day of its release in Japan, Final Fantasy V sold about 900,000 cartridges for 8.8 billion yen, which is the equivalent of $69 million at the time. And that is a boatload of money for that time frame. And if you really want to get into it, that amounts to $150 million if you adjust for inflation as of the writing of this Wikipedia, which I don't have a timestamp date for that, so I don't have an answer for you. Sorry. I'm a numbers junkie to some degree, so to a lot of you people out there, that may mean nothing, but it definitely should mean something to people that are also numbers junkies.
Yeah. I wonder what would happen if you dumped that into Google. Say, what was $69 giggity $69 million, or what was it, 8.8 billion yen worth in today? In such and such a year is worth in today's American dollars. I wonder if Google can figure that out for you.
So yeah, I usually can. Let's see. Its release was 90. What was it? 98? No. Let me go back up to the top here. 92. Okay. So I'm gonna Google that because I'm curious. What is 9?
Cue the Jeopardy music. Da, na, 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 na.
According to current inflation rates, $69 million giggity, adjusted for inflation today would be approximately $105.5 million. So the value of the dollar is currently in crazy flux, so take that with a grain of salt, folks.
Still, that's pretty decent.
That's pretty decent for a day.
Yeah.
Within a day, it sold about 4.5 times as many copies as what Final Fantasy IV sold on its first day, and close to the 1.3 million copies sold by Dragon Quest V on its first day. Final Fantasy V topped the Japanese sales charts in December of 92 and January of 93, selling 2 million copies during its first 2 months of release. It was Japan's fourth multi-million seller released in 92. So that included Street Fighter II, Mario Kart, and Dragon Quest V, plus Final Fantasy V. So talk about a good year for video games in Japan.
Indeed.
Ended the year as the second best-selling game of 92. It went on to sell a total of 2.45 million units for the Super Famicom in Japan. It was also a commercial success overseas in South Korea, where it was the second best-selling game of 1992, below Street Fighter II. By the way, if you guys are wondering where those stereotypes for Koreans being really into fighting games, this would be it. The Japanese Game Boy Advance version has also sold nearly 260,000 copies as of December 2007. The Final Fantasy collection sold over 400,000 copies in 99, making it the 31st best-selling release of that year in Japan. The North American release of Final Fantasy Anthology sold 364,000 copies as of 2004. That would be all the information dump that I have for you folks.
Got anything to add to the conversation, Tyrundeth? Or are you just sitting back and listening and enjoying the show?
Unfortunately, I've had a lot of influx here at work, so I haven't really had much chance to say much of anything.
Ah,
It is unfortunate.
Yeah, it is quite. It's just frustrating that, I had previously agreed to this, and then I find out that, somebody at work quit, so now I have extra time on Tuesdays that I have to be here. So,
F in the chat for Tyrundeth.
Indeed.
We'll figure something out. Maybe your job will hire someone when by the time we get to Final Fantasy VII.
that would be what, 2 weeks?
Yes. Actually, no.
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes, but I think we'll probably have to take off or not do a stream next week because of Thanksgiving.
That's fair.
And so,
I forgot about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we could
Probably
probably
a good idea.
Yeah, we could declare 3 weeks before we get to Final Fantasy VII. That means next week. I don't know. I might still want to do something next week, but we can still say next week will not be Final Fantasy, and then we'll resume on the 3rd with Final Fantasy VI, and then Final Fantasy VII will be on the 10th.
C'est la vie. I'm pretty sure I spelled that wrong. I think it's just VI, not VIE. So you were close, Mojo.
Anywho. So we got a few minutes left. Shall we do some shameless plugs, or do we have anything more to add on the Final Fantasy V topic?
I don't have anything further, but I will shamelessly plug the Lagging Out podcast, because every Friday night at 7 Central, 8 Eastern, we do entertainment, video games / pop culture. We're leaning more into the video games lately, as far as our podcast is concerned. But
only for a good reason.
Yeah, for a very good reason. There's a lot of issues going on as far as there's just a lot of issues going on with social, political BS going around.
I was actually more thinking about the poll or the request for suggestions on the X page.
Oh, thank you for reminding me, ladies and gentlemen, on the Lagging Out Twitter / Discord / wherever else you want to vote. We are taking suggestions for the Tri-Bar Awards as far as what's your favorite or what the best single player, multiplayer, and worst video games of the year are. We've got 4 categories for the Tri-Bars this year. Obviously, best single player game, as I said, best multiplayer game, then what the game of the year is, which is our last category, and then everybody's favorite, the Razzie Award, aka the absolute worst video game of 2024.
And right now it's a toss-up. Usually you don't have one game, usually you don't have this many options for the worst game of the year.
You really don't.
It's a disaster.
It really has been. It really has been. But please, by all means, anybody that's a fan of the Lagging Out podcast, please put your votes or what your nominations are for each of the categories in our Discord, or hit us up on Twitter. I guess you could do Facebook, but I don't know if anybody looks at Facebook anymore, to tell you the truth.
Just remember, if you're gonna hit Hiro up on Twitter, make sure it's on the back of the head.
Gib slap.
If you could even find me on Twitter, because I can't even find me on Twitter.
That was kind of the point.
Yeah. And also, let's see. You talked about the live on Friday. You talked about that, the awards. I will shamelessly plug my own stream on Laganat's channel Thursday night, Mass Effect 3, which I will also be playing tomorrow night, right here on Deep Dive Gaming. Mojo and I will be resuming our Mass Effect 3 playthrough tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. We are in, I believe, Act 3 now, or still, however which way you want to say it. 5 o'clock Eastern time. So we got a little bit of time, a little bit of work to do. We did a lot of grind yesterday, and we probably have more grind tomorrow. Just started, actually. Thank you for the clarification, Mojo. So, yes. And then...
That's exciting, by the way. It's like a freaking... It's really exciting right up to the conclusion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to seeing it. Let's see. Is there anything else? Yeah, let's see. We did a shout out for Tyrundeth.
Please check out the Lagging Out website made by the one and only Mariner.
Yes.
The dude has the patience of a saint writing that dang thing.
You wouldn't know it to listen to me while I'm actually working on it, but yes.
Oh my god. I think there's more colorful language that Mariner knows that he would never admit to knowing.
I would admit to knowing. I just don't use it in mixed or really any company.
Generally, no.
Hiro was on the VC with me one day when I forgot myself.
It wasn't you forgetting yourself. It was you losing all patience and me going, oh, this is a side of you that I've never heard before. Meanwhile, he's cursing up a storm about how WordPress is such a pain in the butt.
Everyone's got their weaknesses.
Yeah. Which is why if I ever ask you to do a website for me, it's not going to be in WordPress.
Yeah, we'll have to explore other options. It'll be helpful if it's just a static page, but we'll see. Anyways, let's see. I think that's it. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. Like I said, we are off next week, at least as far as the Final Fantasy series is concerned. I may still do something with Hiro and or Mojo. And then, yes, tomorrow night, Mass Effect 3. Thursday night, Mass Effect 3 on Lagging Out. Lagging Out Live Friday nights. Hope to see y'all there.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, enjoy Final Fantasy. Thank you, Tyrundeth, for being present at least. Thank you, Hiro and Mojo, as usual. Until, let's see, I got lost in my sign off. Dang it. Okay, fair winds and fun gaming, y'all. Say goodnight, Hiro.
Good night, Hiro.
Say goodnight, Tyrundeth, if you can.
Good night, Tyrundeth.
Awesome.
If you
All
can.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.